Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today we'll be reviewing the Gedeb Wash Processed Ethiopia from Frukt Coffee. And there's the bag right there. And Frukt, based out of Turku in Finland, and it's not just their first time appearing on this channel, but it's the first time any Finnish coffee roaster has appeared on this channel. We discovered this coffee roaster while doing some research into Finnish coffee, and their name is the one that kept popping up the most, as it looks like they've received quite a bit of notoriety within the Finnish coffee community within the last couple of years. That being said, they were only founded in 2018 by a former Coffee Collective employee, so they do bring in a pretty prestigious pedigree into the business. And a little bit more background research, we did find that there are a couple of coffee shops in the United States, including the Dayglow, that use their coffee from time to time. So they've even made their way over to the United States, and we found them at a local coffee shop. We're pretty curious. They had this, a natural processed Ethiopia, and an anaerobic Honduras. And honestly, can't tell you why we went with this washed Ethiopia on the day, but we did try the anaerobic Honduras as well. And while it had a very strong and fruity aroma, the coffee was different, and their coffee as a whole is, we describe it as pretty different. But let's start discussing the coffee so we can get into that a little bit. This right here is day 32. And no, I didn't get any patience. The coffee just got held up in Paris, so it just got here later than expected, and the first time we tried it was on day 23. So the recipe we used didn't necessarily settle on one we thought was perfect, but for this last day, 16:1 water to coffee ratio at 205 degrees Fahrenheit brewed through the Chemex, and this is a light Nordic for the roast profile. With that out of the way, let's start discussing the coffee itself. So as mentioned, day 23, the first time we tried it, it was pretty different. This coffee as a whole, pretty different, unusual start. And the best way we could describe it on this first day was kind of this foresty, berry, foresty kind of pine taste. Just unique and different. They describe this coffee on here as fruity, black tea, and floral. So a pretty generic and basic description, which is fine. Flavor notes are only supposed to kind of guide you rather than be what you're going to taste. So it's perfectly fine. Just kind of reminded of being inside the woods for some reason. Day 24, again, very similar to the first day, kind of forest taste components to this coffee. Light and clean otherwise with some soft fruits, a little hard to distinguish. It's really easy to pick out notes that you've had many times in coffee, but given that these were notes and things that we hadn't had before, it was a little more tricky to pick this one out, as there wasn't as much familiarity with the types of things that we were getting from this coffee. Did play around a lot with the recipe. Day 26 went back, still felt like there was more depth than expected. Picked up on everything from pineapple to lemonade, all wrapped up in this kind of interesting forest-like taste. And I can't recall what the recipe was on this day, but it was definitely different. It feels like every day we tried a different recipe to try to get this right. Day 28, still hard to describe this coffee. Maybe foresty tea on this day. It was a bit more tea-like with some delightfully crisp fruit. Day 30, change up the recipe some more. Bit tame, was more in line with a lot of the washed Ethiopias. This is when we really upped the temperature, and upping the temperature to like 209 degrees, it just kind of took away the really interesting forest-like component of this coffee, which truth be told, we kind of enjoyed just how different and unique it was from other coffees. Light-bodied, clean overall, and then day 31, we went back to our standard recipe just to kind of try it on this one, give it a final assessment. I can only describe this coffee as just being a little different. Not your typical washed Ethiopia, but kind of this darker sweetness, maybe we would describe as molasses. Sugary based forest-like fruits. This has some somewhat herby, earthy, and vegetable components as well in this coffee. So many different, unique, kind of hard to pick out flavors, and you change up the recipe and it tastes like two completely different coffees, which is kind of fun. There are times we would describe this coffee as being similar to Kopi, similar to Say, and even similar to fried hats. So it's just tricky, and that's always kind of fun when the coffee is this tricky. All right, let's go ahead and put up the tasting wheel so you can see what we were getting. And as mentioned, there's a little bit of everything in this cup of coffee. There's a little bit of bitterness, a little bit of smokiness, a little bit of caramel. Berry fruit, not overly berry fruit on this day. I would say it's actually a little bit more of a stone fruit on this day, maybe a little more of a citrus fruit on this day, but when we made this tasting wheel, it had a bit of berry fruit. Acidic 3, floral 3, clean 3, finish 3. Savoriness, because as mentioned, the earthy kind of interesting vegetable component of this coffee is here on this day as well. Level 3, man, sometimes when we look at these tasting wheels, when we make them, we agree, but sometimes we're like, this was not the same on 2 different days as well. And it's always fun when we have the trickier, more difficult coffee reviews because it just challenges us more. This was definitely a more challenging tasting wheel. I can kind of agree with most of this on this day, but even if we had gone back to that, what do we call it, the day with the pineapple was a very good day. It was a very interesting day, day 26. That one was very interesting, and it would have probably looked a little different than it does on this tasting wheel on this day. Fun experience. All right, our thoughts and impressions of this coffee as well as this coffee roaster, you know, it's fun. The challenge is always going to be fun, and we won't act like this was our favorite cup of coffee, but we did enjoy it to an extent, and we enjoyed the much more fun parts. When this coffee was a little bit more straightforward and direct, when you're up to the temperature, when you used the standard recipe, when you upped the dosage, and it just tasted like a normal Ethiopia, it was good. But we did kind of like this fun foresty uniqueness, this earthy, vegetal, herby component to it. It was just different and fun. A lot of flavors we've gotten from this coffee that we've never gotten from any other coffee before, so that's always a good thing. We're going to call that a good thing. And for that reason, we would definitely try another bag of their coffee, and I'm not entirely sure what we would go with for something like that. Just the anaerobic Honduras was a little bit more on the tame side, and that's kind of that kind of comparison to Kopi, which we always considered a little bit more of those tame Nordic coffees. Type of person we would suggest this coffee to is somebody that does want something that's, again, a challenge. Say is always a challenge. Lighter coffees are always a challenge, so definitely a lighter profile. And something, if you're curious, with a very unique and different profile that might have this, you know, foresty taste to it. That's the best way we can describe it. Foresty throughout, just different. Yeah, but we're probably going to leave it at that, given that don't necessarily feel we did an amazing job with this coffee, don't necessarily feel we ever got it right, and don't necessarily feel that we're doing a very adequate job of describing this coffee, as it's just hard. One of the hardest reviews we've ever done, truth be told. But if you by chance tried any Frukt coffees, we'd love to know your thoughts and opinions of them, especially if you've tried this one as well. Did you get these kind of different, unique flavors? We'd love to know what you thought, what you picked up, just different overall. If you're enjoying the content, give this video a like and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This right here has been a review of the Gedeb wash processed Ethiopia from Frukt Coffee. Thank you for watching.